chain
Oh,
is
I'm
a lot
sorry. Yeah,
more
I just
powerful.
recording it for others. Yeah.
So I started to realize that chain of tasks is a lot more powerful than the Google solution, and Google solution is still in beta, and it's 100 times more expensive. Right? So enterprise costs. So let me make that case here, right? So I will start with some quick background definitions, so to ground everybody on common set of expectations, define the problem, and we'll do a quick demo to set the stage, right? To say what exactly an agent looks like, and then walk through the structure of the chain of task prompt, look at the example source code if you're interested in. We look at the prompt, not the source code. We'll look at the prompt and how to build one of these agents. And you can literally, if you have ChatGPT access, you can take the prompt and try it out and simulate it in ChatGPT UI, right? So it's, and then you start to see that it's all written in English, and you can do it for all kinds of tasks. So let me start with that. So here's a quick background for those who don't know me. I've done a few companies. I've founded a few companies. I worked with a number of other companies like B2B, B2C, marketplace, etc. I think of myself as somebody, I grew up in the 90s and 2000s when you didn't have product manager roles at all. An engineer did everything. So I grew up in the time where an engineer was product manager, was the designers, and was the marketing guy, right? So you pretty much wore all the hats like on a startup, even in a large company. So I come with that kind of background experience. I worked across retail, fintech, and a number of other industries. For the last year and a half, I've been an AI engineer building generative applications. And that's the new role. AI engineer is somebody who is non-machine learning engineer who leverages generative AI to build solutions. Until recently, I worked at Rappi as VP of Product Customer Support and VP of Generative AI for all of Rappi. Rappi is Latin America's leading delivery startup. They deliver about 5 million orders a week across 16 verticals. I spent time there, and the more I spent time on generative AI, I realized Rappi was running too slow. I wanted to run much faster, and I left to be able to start working on my own ideas. And this is one of those as well, right? So founded Office Drop, which was a cloud storage startup right out of Wharton in 2007 when cloud was not even a consumer offering, and founded and grew it and got acquired by a Philadelphia company, and I'm class of 07. So here's some background on me. So let's go with some definitions. I think it's important to understand what conversations are. You may think, hey, why is this guy telling us what basics of conversation? Typically, when we talk about generative AI, we think about ChatGPT and so on, and you probably have engaged in both. You would probably have social conversations with ChatGPT saying, hey, how are you? And start to have conversations with you. These are basically to build and maintain strengthen relationships, interaction with family, friends, and colleagues, right? So, or character.ai is a good example of a social conversations platform where you can interact with avatars of Obama or Michael Jordan or not, right? So they mimic the personality of those celebrities, and you can talk to them and so on. Or create your own an agent on the other side who mimics the personality. Today, we're going to focus on the second one, which is goal-oriented conversations. These are conversations that you have to pursue a practical goal. That means both sides of the conversation, one side is helping you achieve that goal. The other side is the human is helping, hey, you know what? I need to book a ticket. I need to make changes to my travel itinerary. Or I need to look up my last payroll. When did I get paid, right? All these things are task-oriented. There's a goal at the end. Once the goal is accomplished, the conversation is done. Right, so we'll focus on goal-oriented conversations, and this is where the money is to be made. This is where people are building, automating, improving productivity. So there are three parts to it. Is a task, a goal-oriented conversations are three attributes. It's designed for specific functions, like I said earlier. It's really important in a natural language setting where you're talking to an agent or a bot on the other side. It needs to understand what you want to do. It's called intent recognition, right? So you need to recognize the intent and decide, okay, this person is looking for make a reservation, or this person is going to cancel, and so on, right? So, and then you have to efficiently complete. Here's an example. where a customer needs to verify recent bank transactions, right? And that's the typical conversation that goes on. And you probably have done this, right? So there are a number of support bots out there that you interact with it. You have these kind of conversations. I think George or one of you guys had shared Klarna launched a support bot which said, hey, 2/3 of our support tickets are going through an OpenAI bot. Or what they do is they look up their knowledge base and answer questions, right? It's a very goal-oriented for knowledge bot. The challenge with this kind of bots is that one, you have recognized the intent, and there could be 100 different tasks that if somebody wants to complete. And building all those tasks today is done in code. You're writing literally all the flows, talking to an agent, talking to an LLM, etc. It is really complex. One agent to book a ticket is simple to write using generative AI. But you have 50 of these agents doing 50 different tasks and assembling it all together to a cohesive one. That's where the complexity starts to increase. And because the flow of these conversations are not something that you do once and then deploy it. You sometimes have to change the flow on the fly after you go to production. Maintaining becomes harder. Right? So as a result, the current technology is not sufficient to be able to do it. And that's where chain of tasks comes in, right? So it simplifies a lot of these things. It's basically a set of natural language instructions that guide agents in executing tasks. Basically describe what you want the agent to do in English or in whatever language you want, and it will follow that script and do it in a very deterministic manner. So by deterministic, what I mean is that whenever you talk to ChatGPT, the same question you ask multiple times, you get different responses. Sometimes the flow changes, the way, the order in which the responses happen or the kind of flow happen, right? So the kind of responses you get. So that doesn't work in a customer setting where the customer wants predictable responses, right? So you want to provide it, so on. Chain of tasks forces a generative AI or a language model to behave in a certain way and consistently. And if you introduce examples, like a 0 shot or a one shot or a few shot, you can force it to follow a script, right? So chain of tasks is basically helpful to gather information. You can integrate with your backend and make API calls. You can take actions. Right? So I'm going to pause there. Any questions? I know I'm kind of running through it. So if you think I'm going too fast, let me know. Okay. I can't, let me see. Shut up. Okay. All right. So like this is a visual representation of a prompt, right? So typically a chain of tasks prompt contains a goal. A goal is basically saying, hey, what is that I would like to accomplish, this agent to accomplish? And the instructions are divided into three things. They're basically subtasks. There's a collection of subtasks. And then these subtasks then call tools or functions to do access data from the backend or take actions or store information being collected in variables. Okay? And I'll go through an example to illustrate what that is. So here's an example called HR Assistant. It's a very simple example. The HR assistant's job is to make appointments for you with respect to HR rep, right? So the goal is to find out what topic you're interested in, right? Look up the dates and times for that HR representative. And once you make the choices, collect your name, email, and phone, and make a reservation, right? So in that situation, you're not only collecting input from the user, but you're looking at the backend, connect to, let's say, Google Calendar or Calendly, looking up what the available dates. You're looking up who is the rep responsible for what topic. And then you're making a reservation, right? So it's a simple agent, but it does, like a booking agent, right? So you can do this with sales, right? The same situation, you can ask, hey, what is that you would like talked about? Who is the sales rep responsible for it? And talk to Calendly and make a reservation, right? So you can deploy a sales agent in the same way.
Prasad, you might be touching on this like later, but how does like the chain of tasks, like on this example, like the structure differs from like the traditional LLMs? I
Yeah.
think that was part of what you were referring before, but maybe like with this example, you could illustrate it.
Sure. Let me walk through this, and then I will describe what traditionally you would want one does, and then how this is simplifying it, right?
Thank you.
So here is the visual representation of the HR assistant, right? The goal, you define a goal, right? So you see this in ChatGPT, you could say here, I want you to act as an HR assistant, right? Your main job is to map HR topics to specific representatives and schedule appointments, right? You always tell ChatGPT what role to play. So the similar, there is no difference. And then you want the agent to start, hey, welcome the customer, take a series of steps, and then look up the available appointments, show that information, series of steps, and then collect email, name, etc., and confirm. So in the case of welcome, it has to call backend to say, hey, who is the HR responsible for a topic, right? What are the dates and times available, and so on. So before, let me do this differently, okay? I just built this deck here. I went in practice. So do you see my demo screen? Or
Yes.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah, because Zoom changed the way it shares. In some versions, it lets you only pick a window or a tab. So, so here's the demo, right? So let me demo it first and then show you what, right? So hi. And by the way, you can try it. The demo is called chainoftasks.ai. So it's showing me, hey, these are the 4 topics. I say, hey, I'm interested in benefits, right? So I said, okay, let me go look up. John is responsible to do benefits. Do you want to talk to Don? Yes, please. Right. It's good. So now it's going to go look up when is John available on what dates. It's given me that. Right. So I say, okay, I want April 1st. Right. Or I can always say April 1st, 15th, sorry. So on, it's saying 9 a.m. So I'm going to pick 11 a.m. Right. So I didn't pick an option number. Now I'm describing it. So it's saying, hey, look, you want to talk to John at 11 a.m. April 15. Do you want to, can you provide me a name, email, and phone? So let's say name is, right? So, and then let me type my email, right? And then phone number, right? So it's giving me all that. And saying, hey, would you like me to go ahead and make an appointment? Yes. So that's basically the structure, right? So you get a little bit of a demo of how I can, of what the HR bot needs to do, right? So in here, we said first, we wanted to present this welcome and present series of topics, and then look up in the backend saying, hey, who is responsible for benefits? So you call a function to find out. And this is where generative AI or OpenAI supports this new idea of functions they introduced last year. Now all models support functions. So they call them tools. They call you saying, hey, based on the information you provided to me, you're supposed to call this function called HR rep. Can you go find who that is? And you return John, and John is then given to the LLM, and LLM then responds saying with this, right? Say, hey, you picked benefits enrollment. John is the person responsible. Then you say yes. At this time, it says, okay, let me call another function to look up the dates. And that's when these happen. And there's a third function, right? And then finally, when you confirm, it's asking for name, email, and phone, and gives you a summary. And the last one, it calls another function called make an appointment. So now we have like 5 functions here. So let me switch back. So if you look at this slide now, it makes a lot more sense, right? So we have 3 sections: welcome, what are the available appointments, collect and confirm. So they're called subtasks.
Yes,
Each of these,
Prasad, you do this with one agent, right? You don't use
one
several.
agent, just one agent.
Okay.
One agent.
It's one agent, but you have what these tools you're referring to. Some of them may be
Yeah.
simple backend databases that
Yeah.
are have a structured API to get input output very simple, right? But none of those are LLM driven. None of the tools are.
So I'm gonna, because you guys are all
Sorry.
like this, I'm going to show you the entire prompt, right? This is it, right? So this is the prompt that drives the
Mhm.
intelligent, right? So let's walk through this. If it's too small, let me zoom it up for
This
you.
is like you put it in. This is like a system message, the way you put it into your system, or it's just a prompt.
It's just a prompt, right? So you send this every time. Of course,
Okay. I mean,
I just
because you
shared
can like
the
preset system message which remains there, for so you
yeah,
don't do that. You just send it as a message, as a simple
yeah.
prompt.
So
It's
you
already-
send it a system message, and then you can send whatever the user is sending a user message, right? So it's a
Okay.
combination. What you
Mhm.
have to do with every turn is send all the history as well,
Right. Mm,
right?
makes
Because
sense.
language models are stateless, so you have to send all the memory. So, but language models are really good, especially 3.5 and beyond, are really good at reasoning. They go back and look at all the data. They know what functions they throw, and they provide the necessary back and forth, right? So I'm leveraging all that reasoning skill set, agent calling, function calling skill set, etc.
Prasad,
And
sorry to interrupt, but just as you're saying you're sending all the history, have you found that the scaling will become an issue? Or this just has to be kept to things where the history won't get very long?
very, very good question. So I think because, can you hold on to that question for a second?
Sure, I will. It just came to mind as you were mentioning the full history.
So the question for other people, just to clarify, is if I keep sending all this every time, the token window, context window is going to big. Oh my God. And you'll be surprised that's not the case. But I'll show you exactly the trace. So this way you can see it, right? But let's walk to the prompt. And this is the beauty of it, right? It's extremely simple. You and I and anybody can write, right? So I'm an off and on engineer. That means I code whenever I feel like. It's like once every blue moon. So it's not like I'm one of those all codes 100% of the times, right? So me build things, right? So this is the instruction at the top. It's saying, hey, you are going to be an HR assistant bot, guide users through HR-related queries. Your main task is to map HR topics to specific representatives and schedule appointments. This you're going to send every time, right? So now you're instructing LLM to say, hey, how are you going to behave? And here are all the variables, information you're going to collect, and you're going to describe what those variables are. This is really important because when the user provides my name is or benefits enrollment, it will take that bit of information from let's say I am interested in benefits enrollment. If I do respond like this, it won't take the entire string. It'll only take benefits enrollment and add it into this variable. So that's where a language model is really good at parsing out and extracting data from unstructured text. Okay. And it starts to fill, you think these variables. And then it says, okay, these are the variables I'm going to use. What am I going to do? Here's a list of subtasks. Each is a collection of steps. You will begin with the welcome subtask. And each subtask either guides you to the next subtask or ends the subtask. Basically, think of it as a collection of subtasks, go from one to other. Subtask 1, say hello to the employee and ask them which are the following topics you can help with, right? Now, I could call a function, look up a collection of topics and present it, right? I just hard-coded here. So you can see the syntax here. I'm using dash to include a step and dash dash as options, right? So that's just the syntax of it programmatically. And then a dash. When the user selects one of the above topics, store it in HR topic field variable. So if you've ever done programming, this is what you do, right? Or if you're done in Excel, if you're done any scripting, this is what you do. You put into variables and you're writing in English, right? And then go to subtask available requirements. Now, I could have written all this in one long subtask, but by modularizing into separate subtasks, it makes it easy to manage, right? So, and then if the user does not select one of those, ask them to choose, right? If I'd selected something, so you can always force it down. So in available appointments, what's happening? Look up the HR rep for HR topic by calling the tool. So this is how you integrate tools. That's a syntax. It's a $tool : Then let's say OpenAI's GPT model, we say, hey, this guy wants to call a tool and he wants to pass in this variable, right? So he wants to pass in this variable. And that means it's going to call my application and say, hey, can you call this tool? Here is the input value argument. Whatever output you bring back, send it to me. So now OpenAI puts that value here and uses it to respond. So if you go back to the demo here, right? It said, I see your interest in benefits enrollment. By the time I selected one, it called a function here and it got a John and then mapped it into the sentence. I didn't have to tell it how to frame that, right? That's just GPT models are really good at creating a response based on context, right? A meaningful context. So that's what it does. Okay. And then switching back here, sorry, where was I? Here. Then once we got this, the user said, oh, you know what, that's great, and asked me to confirm. Then it calls the get dates tool. The same thing with get times tool, and then always prompts the user, gets that information, stores it in meeting date, meeting time, right? Here. And if you look at the get available times tool, I not only pass HRA, but also meeting date as an argument, right? So I have in the function various things available, right? Now, once the user selects the date and time, move to collect and confirm, right? If not, this is a fallback, right? If not, continue to work in the same loop. So it just keeps going back and stays here, right? In the collect and confirm, you're saying prompt for the email, phone number, etc. Validate the phone, email, and phone. By the way, if you noticed, it didn't do the validation here. I purposefully entered P at PCOM. It normally does, but there is a way to force it, right? You can call a function to validate, etc. if I want to. But in this case, it failed, the GPT-3.5, but that's what you would need to do in order to create a 100% deterministic one, right? So once the user collects and confirms, they can call this tool to make an appointment. And once the appointment is done, etc. And here is a stylist, right? You can create a personality here. You can say, hey, I want you to be fun and engaging when you respond. Or you can say professional, efficient. So this is how I'm telling the bot on what kind of style and tone and personality to have, right? So that's where the bottom here, right? So all of this is been run through this. So that's basically the prompt structure for this particular bot. And in the slides, I explained a little bit of each. Okay. Any questions?
Which LLM are you using for the demo? Are you using an OpenAI backend? Or
GPT-3.5 Turbo.
you're using which one? GPT-5 Turbo?
3.5.
Or you mean?
GPT 3.5 Turbo.
Oh, 3.5. I thought you said 5. I'm like, did you get access to 5 before all of us?
I'm not that powerful. So, but if you want to try it, right? In GPT 3.5, I included the link here in the chat window, so you can go it now and click this. In fact, I'll try it here. Let me go to my here. So this 3.5, right? I'm going to switch to 3.5. I'm going to put this here. Now, ChatGPT doesn't have access to functions, right? My functions.
Yeah.
So I can say at the bottom, right? If you do not have access to the functions, do a simulation.
Interesting.
Right? So
Mm.
it's sort of, okay, I said benefits enrollment. So it just made up, right? So it can hallucinate a little bit. So, but it's giving me dates, right? So it's okay, 1. Right now, let's go with times 1. Your phone number, email, but it's following my steps, right? So it's following the instruction that I had given Prasad, and if you see, the responses are very similar to my steps because the steps are the ones that I've seen. So if you're wondering, hey, you know what, Prasad went and wrote some backend code to fix all this, right? I think to your earlier question, Sebastian, is that I've not done any coding at all. Just the prompt is driving all the conversation. The only thing that is missing here are the functions.
So have you tried using this with their GPT builder where you use the actions for the functions and just putting this prompt that's
This is
probably
just,
like a backend file?
It's funny you asked this. My first time I tried the prompt was in GPT builder.
Okay.
Okay, so now if I'd put functions in there, it would have worked. But once I tried there, I said, oh, this seems interesting. So let me try this. This was back in November. And then we try straightforward 3.5 and it worked, right? So in GPT Builder, I think you pay 5 cents a conversation.
No. Well, I'm talking actually the GPT builder through the standard membership. So for example, I have both the GPT regular consumer membership, but I also have for my company the GPT teams. So you can actually build, because I've been having my consultants work on building GPTs for the company and for client things.
Yeah.
So there's an action you can put it when you create a GPT.
Correct.
And so that's what there's no cost per prompt, and it's all included in the monthly.
Yeah, it's there in the monthly $40 or $60.
Yeah,
totally. So, but if you're to, they call the assistants, right? So they have an API behind this. This is what I built back, and let me show you my. Right, so edit, configure. These are all instructions. This is what I had done. My first prototype was this. Then once I started to peel the layers, I realized you don't need a GPT builder. You can build this with regular LLMs, and that's how it came out to be what it was. That's okay. So what can you do, right? What kind of applications can you build? As you can see, you can build knowledge bots, lifestyle bots, productivity bots, anything. You can build separate standalone agents, right? One agent for booking tickets, one agent for looking up your existing reservations, and piece it all together with a super agent that connects all of this together, right? The super agent, all it does is say, hey, you know what? Go figure out which agent to call, right? That's going to be the next prompt that I'm going to publish called Chain of Agents, where how do you assemble multiple agents together?
Yeah,
and then
that's very interesting.
Right? So, and then you can create very sophisticated applications that you can plug into any environment. Right? So that's the capabilities, or just with clever prompt. And by the way, this works with only large language models. You can, let's say if you put this into Gemma or Mistral 7 billion, it won't work because they're not instruction tuned to handle so much reasoning. They do very simple back and forth. Right?
What you say? It's the minimum parameters chain of task is needed.
I've not tested below 3.5, to be honest.
Well, you can benchmark with what they found about bots. You know, when you have several bots, you need at least 100 billion parameter model to have these emerging abilities. They call it this way. So otherwise, they won't work like on 70 billion or smaller models to start with, and then you can go like second step, you go small.
So
once you have it.
You know, you asked how much going to pay for this, right? The entire conversation that I showed you a demo of was, let me go back to this thread, right? This was the one. It was 22,000 tokens, or 0.011875.
So about a cent or so per customer interaction, give or take, maybe 20%.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Each customer contact, not interaction would be, yeah. If you think of it.
Fair enough. I meant the experience. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So here it is. And then if you let's say you train a Llama 2 model, etc., you're not paying, right? So, but you're paying for infrastructure. So, and this, by the way, compared to what Google charges for the same thing, 6 cents per interaction.
What is the Google solution? Is it more turnkey, or like, well, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so I can show you that too. Okay, so let me do a quick comparison here. That way you set the stage for that too, right? So Google just announced it last week during the conference, right? they support goals, instructions, and functions, right? But they do not support variables. You can't store variables. You cannot. So you have to build what are called stateless agents. That means you have to maintain the state. And so each subtask will become a separate agent for that, right? So, and then because you can't carry information, so you have to maintain your own state and send it back and forth, right, between agents. So you're a lot more granular in a sense in terms of this. Now, they say they're going to introduce variables, but it may be in a month or two time frame, right? It works only with Google language models, right? You can only use it with Gemini 1.0 and so on. Doesn't, right? So the positive thing is they have a UI builder, right? That's probably the way the 5 cents they're charging, right? So it's for the UI, not the tokens. So let's look at.
It sounds like that's their competitors, the GPT builder that OpenAI released.
So yeah, the GPT builder is very limited in its capabilities, to be honest. The UI, because in the GPT builder, let's say you can only upload 10 documents, I think, for the
20
backend.
documents, 100 pages per document. So it gives you some flexibility, but they also put the capability of calling other GPTs within prompting.
Yeah.
So
you
similar to how you were calling the functions, you can kind of build those functions to be their own little GPT, and then that's your agent of agents that you were just talking about.
Totally, right? So that's basically you have a walled garden of, to build all that in there. And I think you pay enterprise $60 per user per month, I think, for enterprise.
30.
Okay. Yeah, they quoted when I was at Rappi $60. So like, I'm not going to.
So 60 is so I'm in so they have a new, they didn't have this 5 months ago, 6 months ago. They just released it a couple months ago as a team. It's like so if you're less than a few hundred people, you can do teams, and it's like 30 per person. If you do the yearly, it could be 25 if you just pay in bulk.
And it's the same product as the biggie one that you get.
Yeah, it's the same as the enterprise. The difference is that the enterprise has a couple of more bells and whistles for managing and restricting how you share the GPTs within the company. The goal that they have, because I spoke with, had a few conversations with a few different people. Their target market is get it in, because people were doing this already. They were buying the consumer version within the company, but IT had no way of managing it. So they basically created a quick shell that enables management. You can assign it to different people, and you can restrict, and they don't use the data for training, or so they claim. There's no way to really validate that. So with the Teams one, I can use it with my consulting clients and build things, and not be worried about, their data is all over the OpenAI training mechanism. And also, I've been trying the one within Microsoft. So Microsoft released a similar product. Theirs is a little more expensive. There's their Copilot builder. And they have that for enterprise. It's got more flexibility than the OpenAI one, and much more than what I just saw from the Google one. That one's pretty interesting. They have a very nice user interface. I haven't played with it or my team hasn't played with it as much, but it is quite powerful. And it was tapping into GPT-4 Turbo earlier than even OpenAI, because OpenAI hasn't just started rolling out Turbo for Teams and Enterprise.
Yeah, I should look up the Microsoft one because I've experienced the OpenAI one.
Yeah, Prasad, you should look at it. They give I think a month free. To kind of play with it. It was I personally didn't go too deep with it. I put some people on the team, and we've just been trying all the different ones to see how well they would work for certain situations. I found it works really well with the clients who've been implementing kind of, if you need to have automation of tasks and things that are a bit more manual, that you have databases with good access and APIs, it works pretty well to set that up. And the chain of task logic, then you train the folks to, set that up as some of to create the GPTs. At least that's the approach we've been using, because that chain of task can be applied in many different ways as long as you have a large enough LLM, like Prasad was saying.
Cool. So this is the Vertex AI builder. This is the one that I had built for the hackathon, the conference, right? So and it has similar. I took the example that we have the HR assistant, create an employee assistant. We have the hello, right? These are all, you have to create multiple agents, right? Each subtask becomes like an agent here. So here, if you look at it, it says, hey, you are an employee assistant designed to help employees. So here is the goal, right? If the employee picked option 1, transfer to this agent, right? So this is how you visually type it here. The nice thing about here is that you can actually test it, you see, right? So they have a little test interface here on the side that you can test, and then if you pick the next one, it goes to the next agent, right? So you can see your HR welcome is the next agent. So in the HR welcome, it's the same idea, is, hey, you know what, benefits enrollment, and then it goes to date and time agent, and so on, right? So if I pick one, so here you can see I couldn't transfer the data. It's all hard-coded to Java, right? I hard-coded it, couldn't call functions. I mean, you can have function support, but I didn't have time to implement it, right? So it's that you're going to build those out. It didn't work very well out of the gate, okay, without giving an example. So it only works well with Gemini 1.0 is the model. If you guys noticed it, the only models that are available are Text Bison and Gemini Pro. They don't have a 1.5, which is in preview mode. You have to provide one-shot examples, at least one example, right? You have to literally provide an example flow back and forth in a way, and then it starts to behave. In 3.5 Turbo, I didn't ever provide a single example, right? And you guys saw how just in simulation mode itself, it was behaving very consistently over and over. Whereas here, it would misbehave, especially transferring between agents was very flaky. It would work like half the time. It won't, until I give an example flow, it won't work. And the example flow, if I go back here to hello and show you what I'm defining here is, let's see if I can find the, maybe it's this one. Let's go back here. HR welcome, samples. Yeah, so I have to define not only what options, but also have to specify what agent to call, right? So literally I can add in the agents, what did the agent say, or what the users say, or what tool to use, and so on. So you're describing the whole flow in an example fashion. So only then it behaves. So, okay. So that's the difference. That would be my, as I build chain of tasks into chain of agents, UI, building the UI would be the next step in a way to be able to do the same thing. But you'll be able to pick whatever model that you want and plug in your own API keys, etc. The way I would like to build this out is more, so it'll be available as open source to everyone. So let me finish up, right? So as you guys can see here, the key benefits are rapid prototyping and testing. You can change the prompt, you can test it out in ChatGPT, see it's working, and then take it to your developer and then say, hey, can you build this out, right? Or you can have your own little test ground where you can have the prompt being changed and dynamically testing it out. Very user-centric. The flows can be modified by talking to users, getting feedback, and change things. So product managers, designers could be driving it, or business stakeholders can be driving the flow engineering, right? You probably heard this term called flow engineering. Flow engineering is a new term that has been used in the context of generative models. So flow engineers could be literally non-engineers here. You can, since you're storing a lot of the logic in text, it's easy to maintain. It could be changed dynamically on the fly and deployed without having to push a whole app separately, right? So, and improves maintainability as you wire things up. There's some other benefits. I think one of the earlier questions was, what were people doing before? People were literally coding every interaction into the code. So it'll have, the GPT gave me this, so I need to go and call a function to do this, parse the output. Oh, the user said option 1, let me go find the option 1 and then look it up. So all that code was literally in Python or whatnot in the backend, right? So the entire step 1, step 2, step 3 here, you're coding all that in English. Right? Yeah. So I created a bunch of blog posts describing the chain of tasks prompt. I have a Python notebook here in the second one, and also a demo. You've seen it. If you want to see, get access to the code for chain of tasks, the demo itself is in this repo. By the way, there's no documentation in the repo because I just published it literally in the last 10 days. It's a React UI and a Python backend. I wouldn't call it the best quality code, but I was able to build all of it for an occasional engineer thanks to ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot in a week. I use both these tools and they help me generate a lot of the code in there. So you will see a lot of the, it looks like a generated code because a lot of comments are in there and so on, but it works. So, but at least gives you a start, right? So, and then this is the prompt that I had shown that simulation was. Okay. And I'll share this deck right here so that you guys can access this.
Good job. Congrats on pulling that together.
Yeah, great. Just a question, Prasad, you said that you are working also on the fleet of boats, right?
So what happened after I saw the demos at the conference? I was like, man, I'm so close to doing what they have already published. I should just build this up because I was going to stop with chain of tasks and I said, oh, maybe I can do chain of agents because that was enough like that, right? So the idea is you create a, you can see here.
No, I see that what the question is actually, I'm wondering if what is the gain of having independent agents instead of having like one and split into modules as you did. I mean, split into. I'm just wondering how much efficiency is gained because actually, now that you presented, I'm thinking maybe this general context is. Having this general context may be even more beneficial than having like an independent bots that need to learn. I don't know. I'm just wondering.
So it depends on the application, right? If you have something like the employee assistant, for example, you want employee assistant to be able to answer HR-related questions, payroll-related questions, IT support, contact and knowledge. So you have so many things that you have in a company that is set up that you contact people for various things, and it takes time to get access to it, or you have to learn how to use Workday or PeopleSoft or Oracle solutions, and there is the Kluge interface, and they change all the time, right? But you have basic 5 or 6 questions. If you're able to connect a UI like this with the backend systems, you can get access to all the data and assemble it in one single way, right? So if you're building that, connecting 10 systems into one single interface, you want to start with the first question. Say, hey, what is that you would like to do? And then navigate into a separate path, right? So the first one would be like a super agent asking for the intent and put them into separate agents. So in Vertex AI, everything is considered an agent, right? So where I thought about it is that, hey, we have this chain of tasks. Basically, you assemble everything into one through subtasks. That could be the job of a single agent to solve for, end-to-end collecting information, etc., and set it up in one prompt. And then you can assemble 10 of these through a super agent, right? So you have a super agent with one prompt saying, if it is this, call this agent, and so on, and then it'll route to it. So it's not simpler. Now, does it mean you cannot do what Google is doing? Yeah, you can take the subtasks, get separate agents into them if you want to, but it becomes a lot more crazy to manage little,
Yeah, that's
agent.
what I'm saying. Actually, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that it would be better actually to have one agent with subtasks like yours.
Exactly.
Because
right?
they share a lot in common. It would be, in my opinion, from AI perspective, from the DL model perspective, they share a lot of in common, and they're not stateless. Like they already know what they're doing together. Information is in there. Like vectors are already loaded. So I'm just wondering that it would be. I was building actually. I was playing. I was not nothing serious, but I was doing this like many bots together. And the difficult part is to construct these things that basically can be done automatically,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think
why?
I think
Yeah.
well, I think it's to Prasad's earlier point. It's kind of application specific, and the more complex the application or combination of tasks,
Mhm.
then I think you need more agents. So if you were going to automate an enterprise, as Prasad was referring to, you might
Right.
think about like an HR bot, a strategy bot, a finance bot, an accounting bot. So I think it's
Mm.
kind of the same thing. And to your point, it's the degree of commonality that you need inside of a context window in order to achieve an outcome. And if you string
Yeah.
those together, I think that's how you get end-to-end automation.
Yeah, so and I will try now this weekend, and I'll let you know how it works. Actually, to putting my bots into one thing and see if they deliver the same results under the same constraints. Because I like this idea of how Prasad put these things together within one interface instead of having call, for instance, instead of calling like Claude or something else. Which can then be involved in my interaction. It's much more complex for me than doing the way Prasad did.
So one of the things that I didn't mention, I'm using LangChain to do a lot of the grunt work, right? So the code is pretty, if you look at the Jupyter notebook, it's probably 100 lines,
Hmm.
right? 80% of it is all LangChain. So
Right.
LangChain creates, they introduced what is called Lang graphs. So a lot of the agents are basically graph applications. They goes in a loop, right? They ask you a question, then you answer, they keep going back in a loop, right? So they're did a single like a tree, but they're a tree with the loops in there, right?
Yeah.
So they introduce this concept of a Lang graph, which is phenomenal, right? So each of the nodes can be a tool or a talk to a customer or and so on, and that simplifies the code base.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes, that's what I didn't know about LangChain
It's
that you are saying, mentioning now, but it's great because that's a kind of graph would be the solution to, like, easiest solution to have this shared context and more collaborative bots without being bothered by all these different APIs, if you call like different bots on the backend. Yeah, that's great. And so, when do you think that you are going to have the Christian just sent them for Microsoft?
Yeah,
Yes.
I put the links for, because you had asked, you can go try it, Microsoft Copilot Studio. Again, from how to fit it into the various things you have access to, I think it's the competitor to what Google just released, but it's much more advanced and basically a copy of GPT builders, but much more enterprise friendly. And with a better UI for building. And they also have the benefit that they've connected it to their existing apps in like the team store and things like that. So if you wanted to get, any of the enterprise applications to be called as an action that you already have, it's integrated through point and click. You don't need to know code to do it. You can actually build something that's calling on Calendly and all this other stuff without knowing how to use their API. It's baked in.
So let me ask you guys, do you know anybody at LangChain?
Actually, I think we have. I will ask. Actually, I know that we have someone who is connected some way. Who was
So the
connected?
reason I ask is, I want this to be merged with LangChain, right? So because LangChain is built a lot of the infrastructure that relies on, right? The next step is building out these agents and then build a UI on top of it to be able to do it. And LangChain is starting to build business, right? So the Langsmith, which is what I'd shown, how much it costs, the threads, all of it is LangChain's product. So they are already starting to build out business models, and one of them is to do with evaluation observability to Langsmith. They also have parsing documents as well to extract text. So I see this to be one of the things. And I say, if you can merge this with Langsmith, then everybody in the world can have access to it. So that would be then have a open source competing product to the Microsofts and the Googles that work with any language model. So that's my vision of taking it where.
I think they will be happy if you reach them directly, even without anyone. But the person I'm thinking of is with the AI Studio, and also he's in the math code group, and I will ask him if, or you can just ask a general question if
And
anyone
also
is.
ask in the Wharton VCT group as well. So
Yeah,
probably all that.
interesting. And so it would be interesting to compare this idea with the chain of bots. And then I don't know if you know what they did, this DSPY library.
Yeah.
What did you see what they did? Actually, you have like in neural network, you have like prompts you can use, and then they will adjust it to if or they can even train on your use case. Like
That
for
was one
instance,
of my. I
yeah,
saw the demo of it last week. I came to learn how to say it. It's called DSPy, like
yeah,
NumPy, so, or data science pi. That's what it's supposed to be. They've taken chain of thoughts and turned this into a function call and so on, right? So basically, and I was like, oh, maybe I can do chain of tasks and turn it into a DSPy function call and see what it
yeah.
does. And that was my, thought, but I think I'm going to take it after seeing Google's Vertex AI builder. I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe that's the path, because like Christian is saying, everybody's going on the path of letting people build agents interactively. That's the
Mm-hmm.
place to set on open source as opposed to paid source or paid product. No way.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it would be interesting. I tried, as I said before. It was interesting. When I got twice already stack was actually the logic of the application I wanted to build. It's difficult to. I'm always debugging it again, like as if I was, as if I were writing a regular code and going back to the logic where I'm getting it wrong. And sometimes you find that it's not you actually, it's the LLM, and then you have to correct this logic and try to communicate better to LLM what you want to do. And so that's when I find that the DSPY kind of thing would help me a lot, to at least to avoid like avoid to debug interaction between me and LLM. So to streamline this part, and then the rest is doable. And that's why I think it could be very useful for anything anything that can be done. I don't know. I'll try and I'll let you know. Very interesting.
Yes, I would love to hear how this could be integrated with DSPy and start to
No,
branch
you
further.
call basically it. You take like layers in
Yeah.
PyTorch, and they have like anything like chain of thought or chain of some or and you cannot. They can actually incorporate chain of tasks, and they will have like one module to call it if you need to, and then you will have properties what you want to. I like in neural network. So they are basically imitating whatever was done in Keras, I think, or like PyTorch, because TensorFlow was not that friendly at the beginning.
Prasad, one question here. We have companies which have customer portals, right? Where
Yeah.
customers can see their data. They can,
Yeah.
sort of look at things, right? But you don't know what question that customer might ask around it. Like it's not as clear cut, like you said, like, hey, here are 4 things you can do. They can ask anything. Is that useful what you're doing there, or not really? That will be something
So
else.
I think it is. So basically, if you have an open-ended question, the first thing that you would do is figure out what that question is, right? And then internally you would map it to finite number of topics. And then if you have an agent for the topic, you put them in that agent specific calls, right? And then it forces you to, oh, you're interested in learning about let's say you're looking at like a Salesforce and Salesforce building an agent in there. You want to learn about how to set up a vendor, right? And then you can ask literally, then it forces you on a script, right? So, but start with the open-ended chatbot, but you then take them down. And if it's just learning, you can put them in a knowledge base, then you look up a knowledge database set and then build it up, right, based on the topic. So that's the triaging. Think of it like a hospital, right? Since you're in healthcare, you go to a hospital, they ask you for which way, what do you want to do, right? You need a triaging bot, which decides open-ended question and then puts you down a path. in a structured way. And I think the most important thing in an enterprise setting is that you want consistent experience for the
Right.
same task, right? So that's where you have to force people down this back and forth in a similar interaction. Then otherwise customers will be like, hey, last time I asked this, it behaved differently, and so on. Why is it this one? There's confusion, and so on, right? There can be some variance because of personality, right? Or the order of collecting information, but you don't want too much variance between turns or multiple interactions.
Yeah, and when to do this, do you use always clarifying questions, or there are cases where you rely on what, meaning if the question comes in and you know that it's option 4 that you need to call, do you still do like double checking, or you rely on
Yeah, you can always say, hey, are you interested in can I
Yeah,
confirm?
Yeah,
Sure.
I was wondering if
Oh.
what's your experience like? Did you rely on the LLM directly, or you always double check still
No.
between
So
these?
in fact, if you look at the demo I showed at one point, I asked it saying, can you confirm?
Right.
Right. In the prompt I said, hey, after you select John, can you confirm? The user won't set up. So you can, in the prompt itself, you can ask it to confirm. So that part is done in the prompt.
Yeah, so you always ask, right? So
It's
this
always
is
good to ask,
that's
right?
what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm doing when I do this kind of application, I always double check, even if when I'm sure or LLM is sure, say with high likelihood that no, it knows where to send the customer. I still believe that double checking is a good idea, no matter how many times it pops up. So that's the way I think. Well, it's maybe less user friendly, but
No, it is more user friendly because I gave them structured options, right? And I
right,
picked 1, 2, but I could have just typed benefits. I could have just typed payroll, right? Or my paycheck.
right,
Language model knows how to map those options to the existing ones. And then as
right.
part of mapping, you say, hey, are you really looking for benefits related stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then it can call a function by passing the benefits enrollment, that string, to a function, because the function is written by me.
Right.
I'm not looking for 10 variations of benefits enrollment. I'm just looking for the string benefits enrollment to look up.
Yeah, once you have like one number out of 5 options that customer confirms, you already it's almost deterministic from there, right? So you have a number, but no more meaning or semantic definitions or understanding, interpretation, everything goes away. So you already have like really precise question. That's a good thing to do. Yeah. Interesting.
So quick poll, we're at time. So how many of you are working or building or planning to build something like this in your office setting or startup or whatnot?
Well, I
Yeah,
am.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I have. Why what happened to me is actually I'm working on. I've been working for 12 months or something completely different, and not related directly to those LLMs. And I've assumed from my previous experiences, I've always had this. I will do it later. I'll do it later. I followed everything until GPT. GPT-2, I think. And then I switched to something more I was doing on my own, this UX thing, and then into something again different, time series. And so now I came back and I'm trying to get what I missed. And actually what I missed is nothing. I mean, I missed more of interaction and more probably what happened a lot is actually people started implementing last version of GPTs using those interfaces that you are working on, and I want to catch up. So first, before I go to my next project, which will be will be in finance, the other one will be in edtech, and yeah, I'm building and playing this a team of bots, or I'm also playing with what they call system messages. When you set the context and it remembers context continuous, you can do this into customer version of this $20 contract that you have with OpenAI, or you can do this with any LLM, and then it always remembers this a specific agent this context, what they call context filter. And I've learned about different types of prompt engineering techniques, but they seem to me quite standardized already. And recently I read the paper saying that actually you need to customize these prompts to each model to make them most efficient, which kind of was disappointment, but also interesting, because basically you need to do different types of prompting with Claude than with OpenAI. That's where am I now in terms of LLMs. And I
That's
learned
right.
everything about transformer hacks, what they do, mixture of agents, how they design them, why they design them, this intuition behind it. And basically what I learned that they know nothing about why these things work. So this is basically kind of positive, because actually there's a lot of to discover.
Got it.
Yeah,
So
George,
I
one thing I've
think
looked
Rob,
at too around that is prompt refactoring when you're going from model to model. And I think there's a lot of questions around Anthropic supporting function calling, right? To what you were saying before, Prasad.
Yeah.
So it's like I think that the consensus is OpenAI does support function calling and it's on Anthropic's roadmap. So there's that. And so there's a question of how much do you have to refactor? And then also that one throws in XML and the other doesn't. So
Yes,
yeah.
that's also a thing.
yeah,
Yes.
Cloud supports function calling.
It's like it's hazy, right? It's like, well, it's on the roadmap. Yeah, I think I have a link for it somewhere, but yeah, I had been looking into that. I'm sure soon enough it'll catch up, but yeah, I think they vaguely do it, but it's not as robust from my perspective as what OpenAI does. And then when you do, it's about pulling in XML versus not. So you can't just lift and drop the prompts from one to the other.
Yeah,
I think
that's
at least
where-
now they can.
Where
Yeah.
LangChain comes in, LangChain built a tool function calling wrapper on top of all these. So you just doesn't matter what model you use, they normalize it to the same format. And then
Yeah. And
So
this is and this is a topic for another time, but I've been super interested in the idea of model routers, right? It's that whole idea of for a use case at a given time, route it to the best model, especially when you consider cost and all the tokens and all that good stuff. So I think eventually that'd be very cool if it can just get intelligently routed to whatever model, and then Prasad using that LangChain wrapper to standardize it. Yep.
So I think Rob and Brent had raised their hands when I asked a question. So
Yes,
Oh,
someone
yeah,
raised a hand. Yeah.
Oh, not a question, just we are doing development. And really enjoyed your presentation today. Thank you so much for spending the time to share it.
My pleasure. It's this is how I get feedback and input, so it gets better over time. And Rob,
Yeah,
I'm
so-
gonna test now, and I'll give you more.
awesome. Yes. Rob,
just
I know you're running a customer service, right? So I remember at one time you had asked about customer service software and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Just in response to the question you asked, Prasad, yeah, we are working on some of this at my my current startup, really around customer service use cases. You can think, we're basically an insurtech company, so we have this notion of claims or service requests that happen with higher frequency than like auto insurance.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of opportunity in terms of both cost saving, customer service, and automating this. So it's a little bit more narrow than what you've communicated today, which is super interesting. And there's some more like commercial applications around it. Anything from like Ada to there's a startup that turns out is a portfolio company of one of our investors I've been talking to. But yeah, these use cases definitely resonate.
Yeah. I think the place where once you said insurance, you can extend this to a multi-model, right? So you can take pictures and upload, and then you would call another model to analyze the image and gets back the content and say, based on the analysis, is this really a license? It is what information is available, and extract it and include it in the prompt as well, right? You can literally build all of that. The prompt can be extended. I've not tried it, but I think it just feels you just train a GPT Vision 4 would handle both text and images, and do both.
Yeah.
Right? So
Absolutely. We already have a feature where you can take a photo of the essentially like information nameplate on your appliance, like your dishwasher or your refrigerator, and we extract the make, model, and serial number using AWS Textract. There's no, I mean, I see that getting incorporated into LLMs very quickly.
It's already there. So you can, one of the last applications we built when I was at Rappi was menu data extraction and purchase order invoice extraction, right? We would use OCR to get to 80% accuracy, but last 20% matters a lot, right? So we got a 96, 97% with GPTs. So we would train the GPTs on, literally, we had like 10 different varieties of purchase orders we would get from all the different vendors. So because of formatting, etc., and OCR was not always perfect. So we would literally train them on the nuances of each cluster, fine-tune different models. So each model is fine-tuned for that specific structure. And then once we extract the data, we would send it, and the model would perfectly format in a JSON object and return it and tag it, right? So we were able to get from 80 to 96 on menus, right? So Rappi has 250,000 restaurants and more. So every time a new restaurant comes in, in the past, we would just enter the main menu data to hand. The salespeople are the ones entering it, takes for hours and waste our salespeople time. Now, the new models that will be deployed soon will just take a picture of the menu and we extract at 95, 96% accuracy. Now the restaurant owner is basically looking at it and say, oh, you know what? I took a picture, uploaded my menu. And these menus are so different depending on, which restaurant it is. Some are very colorful, they're structured differently. And GPT does a phenomenal job they have an OCR built right into it. So I don't even have to do a lot of that work as well. So it's and there. Cool. Right. So I think we're out of time, right, George?
Actually, we don't. It's like really relaxed, so we don't have any time constraint for today. So if people want to come later, they can. They want to leave early or later, they also can leave. Depends on all of us. Yeah. Well, thank you a lot. And what we can do, actually, I wanted to know what was the format that you were doing, Prasad, before we've done this together. I think you were more about learning, right? The group that you, so, and how you were doing it? Like we can replicate it within AI Studio. For instance, if you were probably doing how to do something, right? It was more like this.
So I see Amaya, Linda, Nadine are all part of that group, right? So and Jay, right? Jay.
Okay.
So the way it was more like a combination of a social group plus learning. So we would spend 5-10 minutes just chatting, catching up, what is that's going on, and then we would jump a 30-minute let's share. And it was not I know Jay would come and share stuff to do with some of the new. Jay is really good at prompt engineering, and he does amazing work on it. So he would share some of the work that he's doing, and so on. So everybody had a certain thing that they would have done in the last few weeks or months, and then we would learn from each other. So that's been the format. So we could bring the social part of it because at the end of the day, they're all
Well, I want to, yes, what I wanted actually, if we can do it this way, your way, I mean, the way you were doing before, and we can come with the problems that we face, and if we can solve together, we can post like 2 days before or a week before, so that we have time to help each other in terms of solving those things that we are working on. And I don't know if you guys are fine with this. If maybe you were already doing this, so I wanted to propose this, and then we can submit those questions, and then anyone who can help, or we can even ask our own colleagues to help. This would be great. I think once or twice a month, we can do it, and we can use this Zoom.
We have half of the group, almost the entire group is here. So Linda, Maya, Dean, and Jay, what do you guys think? Should we merge?
Yeah, it sounds
Where
good.
are you?
I mean, yeah, this it started as like a 07 thing, right? And it was like Prasad said, pretty social and informal. I like that.
Mhm.
And it's just a matter of like how big it gets. So maybe if it's about learning, people might want to learn on a different topic, and there's certain topics, or you kind of just make it a social where it's just like people are catching up and there's no big agenda.
Yeah, this is
yeah.
no, actually we can do both. We can,
Mhm.
yes, we can have like some questions that we all have, and then some social gathering, like 10, 20 minutes, or without limiting time. And we were doing the same thing, but I was doing with my friends, but they're not working alumni. So, but we can do the same, like you've done, and just combine the common things that we are working on all, and we want to solve those things together. And if we want some help, we can help each other. So this would be
Yeah.
great.
One thing too about it was she's not on this call. She's pretty busy in her semi-new job, but Debbie Wang was, Debbie and Prasad were really kind of taking the lead and organizing it. And she really kind of kept everybody, like she would summarize it and send out notes. So like that kind of also helped recap things. But
Sure, I did not
yeah.
put, you know what I didn't do today? I didn't want to we make you guys uncomfortable. I found that Zoom has already a AI companion, which we have. And
Mhm.
it can summarize everything. And I recorded, yes, but then again, I did it just last time because Eric or someone asked for it now, and I remember that I wanted to, so I recorded. And then we can do this AI companion thing, which will make actually all the notes well, because we are using it in our when we do like club meetings. So
Mhm.
this part of Wendy will be automated out until she's busy, before she's
Mhm.
busy. And well, the topics we can combine again as you were probably doing, or as we were doing separately. And
Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
just suggest for the social part to have that turned off, because it's like it's nice when people can kind of commiserate and share like frustrations about, clients or job, and it's nice to have it like a friendly thing. So if it's that part's not transcribed and recorded, I think that's a good idea. Because people
yeah,
can
of
be a little
course.
bit
So
more,
it's
candid.
yeah, of course. I mean,
After the
we
first 10
can
minutes.
transcribe. Yeah, we can transcribe only the part when we are like, working on something complex to how to solve,
Yeah.
and sharing our experiences. And yeah, it depends. I don't know, but I think anyone can click on it. If not, I can make anyone co-hosts. And then if when you are co-host, you can absolutely click on it, and then you record, so that it will generate the notes, and we can have like record for free.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is if you just dedicate X beginning or end to a non-recorded time. That usually works.
Yeah, and then we decide, yes,
Yeah, you just decide if it's
specifically.
upfront or at the end. I've used similar approaches with some client meetings where people are sensitive. So sort of a off the record and on the record type
Yeah,
of framework.
exactly. Okay, so what was the rule that you were meeting each other on Saturdays, second Saturdays? That's the rule.
No, it's once a month.
Once a
Second
month. Okay.
Saturdays.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought of doing on Sunday and Saturday. Once on Sunday, for those who cannot come on Saturday, we have people who do the Sabbath and they cannot come on Saturdays. So maybe we can do once for them, or for people have kids and they walk kids on Saturdays. Absolutely. So Eric, for instance, and Didem they have kid days on Saturdays. So I thought
We can
maybe
do
once we
a
can do.
we can do a fresh poll and see if people want to switch to Sundays, right? So we've been
Yes,
doing it for a year
I
now.
think at least 5 people today could not come who actively are involved in AI and want to have some help, and also provide us with some help because of kids or Sabbath. So um,
I
we
think
can,
Rakshita
if
is one of the
that's
people
okay, we can
strongest.
once try Sunday, I don't know, and see
So
if it's.
the one other option is Sunday evenings, because if you either do it at the beginning of the weekend or the end of the weekend. If you do it like
Yes.
some morning, people who are on trips, etc., can't make it, right? So usually
Yeah, that's correct also. But then
evening is
Sunday evening for you is like 4 a.m. in
oh,
London.
yes.
This is another problem.
That's
Yeah,
why
let's see.
that's
Let's
the
see.
reason why we picked the morning, because we have Satish,
Yeah.
who joined from UK as well. So
So yeah,
uh,
someone will suffer. Yeah, I see that.
we were
Okay,
gonna
anyway,
start
so let's
on
figure out.
Friday afternoon, but Friday afternoon people are still at work and so on. That didn't work very well, so we switched it to the weekend.
Yeah,
I
and also,
think-
so there are two things, like personal constraints and then time zone constraints. So the terrific is when it's morning in San Francisco. It's great in Europe. It's great in Europe until I think until 2-3 p.m. Then it becomes like 1 a.m. in London. It may not work. It will work for me actually, but I don't know about others.
I think just we're never going to have like a time that meets all of those requirements. So, and it doesn't have to be just one. There may be some others that sprout up for other regions that make it sense, and there can be co-sharing afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I've been part of what Prasad and Linda and Dean and Jay were all doing, but it sounded they kept it simple, small, and just who can make it, and just became more regular. So
Yeah,
we don't
exactly.
over-engineer it, and it should work itself out.
Okay. Yeah, let's just do polling or whatever. So and whatever works for at least for the people who will be presenting, they will have to kind of dictate for each meeting when it's gonna be, and then we can do two if
go ahead
someone's.
and start doing it, and people who can make it sometimes will come and we adjust, right? So
Yeah.
basically how these things work out, it's so hard to get everybody who's perfect
Yeah,
happy.
that's correct. Okay. Great. So let's figure out the next meeting together and see how it goes. And I'm gonna share with you how my bot experience improves my existence. I have actually I'm working on many bots, and now I started thinking of minimizing this into and putting all this together like in tasks. Let's see how it goes using DSPY.
Cool. Great. Thank you guys for all the amazing feedback. And I'll guys let you know how things progress.
Okay,
Thank
wonderful.
you so much for hosting
Thank
this.
you.
Prasad.
No, it was all George put this Zoom call together. Thank you, George.
No, it was about your tasks.
Thank you. And
Chain
by
of
the way,
tasks.
and share the recording. That would be awesome.
Yes, I will. Absolutely. Great.
Have a good
Thank you
weekend,
so much.
everybody.
Good weekend.
Great job, Prasad.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.